Hi. I wondered if here's my context. The World Conservation Union on Ecological Biodiversity is extremely concerned about invasive alien species, which is the second greatest threat to biodiversity in the world. And that Conservation Union is also supporting your viewpoints for agriculture and the local context and everything. But there's also this other side of managing invasive alien species, which could use judicious and preemptive use of herbicides, pesticides. What in your context of agriculture and being anti-pesticides, for all the right reasons, how does that come into your life, this invasive alien species issue in our natural areas to protect our biological diversity so that we can do all the right things with agriculture?
That's a complex question, and I'm a little out of my depth because that's not language that I've used. No, invasive alien species. But let me just say that in some ways we've changed ecological systems so radically that we shouldn't just imagine that we can step away from it and it'll all be good. I mean, we are in that interface, humans are in that interface with their ecological systems necessarily, and so we continue to manage. And I shouldn't be misunderstood. I am not absolutely opposed to all chemical and fertilizer use. That's definitely not. I mean, I was a leader in the Farmers Union, and most of our farmers are conventional farmers. So that's definitely not a stance. I understand the use of that. What it seems to me we have to be really, really cognizant of is that little insertion of judicious that you put in there, and what do we mean by that, and how are our interventions actually good management, and where should we just step away from management completely and let it happen? I mean, I take it that the presentation that we heard there yesterday about the caribou and those wildlife systems, every intervention into that ground is mismanagement. I mean, there are places like that where whatever you do, it's mismanagement, so you should step away from it altogether. But there are clearly places where we have to manage because we all eat, and food production and management of ecological systems is part of what we have to do to remain on this earth. So that isn't a clear answer, but it's an attitude towards.
I think we have time for just one more question.
I guess I've just got a couple of comments, pretty small things. You mentioned the challenge of having greens over the winter, and over the last winter, I just have started sprouting seeds, and I've been astounded at how easy it is, and it's a really easy way to get greens. So I would encourage anybody here who wants to eat locally, you can do it in your own kitchen. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, I'm from BC, and I've had to spend quite a bit of time in Calgary the last year. And of course, in BC, in the fall, we have tons of fresh produce. And I was really surprised trying to find it here in Calgary. I couldn't find anything in the stores that was not from the United States, even though I know you've got lots of fresh produce in the fall. And I was talking to the produce manager at a Calgary co-op about that last fall. And he told me that he couldn't get anything from BC or elsewhere because the amounts that they put in their purchase, they required minimum orders. And so when you spoke about efficiency, this reminded me because they needed to buy a certain quantity, and that was what Calgary Co-op was demanding, a minimum level. And it occurred to me there's probably quite a few members of the Calgary Co-op in this audience, and that if there's anything that could start to make change, it would be the Calgary Co-op that could change purchasing practices and allow you to have more local produce. So that was more like a comment, but maybe you could also comment on that.
That's, of course, that is part of the standardization, industrialization of the food system, is that it demands a certain volume in order to be profitable. And this assignment that I opened up with, that students do, one of the astonishing findings is that you'll have a product that is actually grown in Saskatchewan and then is processed somewhere in the States and then comes up to Edmonton to a warehouse and then is redistributed back to Saskatoon. And these are efficiencies and economies of scale. And that's exactly what you're talking about there, is that the systems are set up in such a way that it's exclusive of that diversity and that the vicissitudes of local production. A highly industrialized, sophisticated system cannot have that kind of diversity within it. It has to be standardized. And that's something that we have to break out of that in order to allow ourselves a food system and create ourselves a food system that is in any way reflective of and caring for local diversity. I mean, you've given the example there.